Well, hey, people, as promised, Jordan Hicks joined me this week on the Ron Johnson Show. I'm looking forward to that sit down with him and Sam. It's one of those things where when you get a chance to talk to former players that just got done playing, you get a different insight. So I want you guys to listen closely to what he has to say about injury, because we know Carson Wentz went through it. And Jordan Hicks talks about what it takes to get back on the field. And that's coming up next. Now it's time for the Hanging Ron Johnson segment. And I got a guy, played linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings, but that's where not a lot of people know him. I mean, he's been 10 years in the NFL. Philadelphia Eagles, so sorry, Vikings fans. It's just hold on, relax. I know he's an Eagles guy, but Super Bowl champion, Arizona Cardinal, Cleveland Browns. So, I mean, when we're talking quarterbacks, I feel like every team, other than the Eagles, Jordan Hicks can talk about. I mean, even Texas, we can talk quarterback controversy. But Jordan Hicks, NFL linebacker, former NFL linebacker after 10 years, is now joining me on the Hanging Ron Johnson segment. Jordan, man, when you came to the Minnesota Vikings, you know, my job as an analyst, as the pregame show host and all that stuff, and postgame on K-Fan Radio and all that, is to kind of look into players, man. And the one thing about you, if you're not a true football fan, a lot of people don't understand even like what linebackers do if their name is not Ray Lewis. I play for the Baltimore Ravens, so I play with Ray Lewis, and a lot of people always want to go there with linebackers, man. But you know, you're a guy that is like playing 10 years in the, like I only played 3 years. So playing 10 years in the NFL, man, I know how awesome that is, how much hard work that takes. But when you look at that, you know, being a part of an organization that everybody says it doesn't last long, you were able to last 10 years, man. What do you attribute to that?
Yeah. First, appreciate you having me on. I'll tell you what, it's a pleasure to be here. But I attribute it to, first and foremost, staying healthy, right? Mm-hmm. Early on in my career, I got hurt a lot, you know, tore my Achilles, tore my pec my first year, right? I had some injuries there, and my career could have gone one or two ways. You know, I could have fizzled out, been the injury prone guy that nobody trusted and wanted to get out, or did what I did and took ownership, got healthy, made sure I took care of my body, became a pro, right? So first and foremost is the ability to stay healthy, stay on the field, and then I think it's being able to adapt in today's game. Right. When I was in college at UT, it was a lot more, I was accustomed to the spread offense, being in the Big 12, going against Texas Tech and all these air raid offenses. But you get to the NFL now, you got some back sets, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You got to be able to cover on third down as a linebacker nowadays. So having the ability to, really be malleable and just adjust to the responsibilities that were being asked of me, allowing me to play all three downs basically for my entire career. So it's a big adjustment coming to the NFL. It's playing linebacker in the NFL is one of a kind. It's special.
And you went to Texas, so there's a lot of Texas versus Oklahoma stuff. There's a lot of just Texas football. When you go back to USC, like Texas football, it's a storied program. But right now, so let's dig into you're an alumni because, I'm a Gopher. So I'm watching my Gophers with a freshman quarterback or second year redshirt freshman quarterback kind of finding his way. And your guy is all over the place. Arch Manning. As an alumni, when you see the highs and lows, man, of a young quarterback, one, have you gotten a chance to go back to a Texas game? Because I saw you at the Vikings game, so I know you're kind of making your rounds, getting around the games. Have you gone back to a Texas game? And then if so, what would you tell a guy like Arch Manning that's in the spotlight, but now finding, it's not always great in the spotlight?
Yeah, been back to a Texas game yet. The plan was to actually go this weekend. They play Vandy, big one. Obviously, never thought a Vandy game would be a big one, but obviously they've got a lot of hype behind them right now. But I think we're going to end up making it out to the Texas A&M game instead. Okay. So haven't been back, but as a playing 10 years in the NFL, you see every possible situation that a player can go through. Right. I personally, went through a situation where we drafted a young kid. I get a call the next day after the draft in Arizona from the GM saying, "Look, you are no longer our starter. Coming off of like 130, 40 tackle season, like all this stuff. Hey, you're no longer our starter. You know, this rookie who has never even practiced a down in the NFL is going to be our starter, right? You go through these scenarios and you see the pressure and the mentality that it takes to last in this game. And it's just part of the story, right? Guys like Arch obviously have a huge hype behind him, right? And that's why the University of Texas was AP #1 before the season, because of his hype. But part of the story that you have to see through a different lens is the fact that tough times are going to come, and that's just part of the game, 100%. You know that tough times come. How do you respond, right? How do you respond? How do you stay committed to the process? Not get too high, not get too low, but stay poised through it all. And, again, he is as hyped of a player as I've ever seen come through the University of Texas. And I think he's handling it well. I think Coach Sark is trying to figure him out. I think they're trying to figure out their identity on offense. It sucks to see the struggle. The defense is keeping us in games and pulling it out. But you just hope, you hope that he's able to mentally stay strong, that he's able to mentally handle it. And you think you got to think he will, because of, his pedigree that he comes from. So.
And you were part of, jumping to the NFL, early on, your success at Texas, you go to the NFL, to the Eagles. But early on, you reached the pinnacle. You were able to win a Super Bowl against the Patriots. So you were part of one of the most storied, and it was in Minnesota. So kind of really ironic because your Eagles fans, man, they weren't nice to Vikings fans. I'm pretty sure you saw all the social media. So when you kind of got the news, okay, Cardinals, and then you're back to the Vikings, like, did you remember that? Like, Vikings fans coming, any of those stories, or like Vikings fans getting beat up by Philly fans? Like, did you know anything about any of that when you were an Eagles player?
Yeah, you hear all those stories for sure. When you're in Philly, man, you realize real quick how rough it is out there, right? And then you leave and you're like, dang, I kind of missed that roughness, like you were part of that. But yeah, no, walking in, I remember the first time I walked in the locker rooms, we actually had the home locker room at the stadium. And I remember walking in there for the first time, and remembering that the last time I was in there, we were popping champagne bottles and, smoking cigars and jamming Meat Mill in the locker room, right? And just, feeling that sense of accomplishment that everybody's trying to feel. So it was an interesting moment for sure.
Yeah, because that was literally, I think it took over social media for a good 2 weeks. One, the Vikings were done. You guys were still playing. And then the fact that Philly fans not only beat up Vikings fans, not all of them, we know there's a handful, they made the trip to Minneapolis. And so everybody was just like, really? Really? Like, we got to deal with these people here now. And then, we've seen it now, Kevin Hart and so on and so forth. But I was going to say that, like, we're like, was Gilly and all that, were they in the locker room back when you were there? Like, was this kind of new for Gilly the Kid and Kevin Hart and all those guys? I know Kevin Hart was around, but like Gilly the Kid, is like, were they in the locker room too when you were there?
Gilly was not around when I was there, but Kevin was. Yeah, he was always around during that time. So we didn't have a ton of stars, I don't think. Bradley Cooper was always in the stands. Mike Trout was always in the stands.
Okay.
Outside of that, yeah, I don't really remember people in the locker room like that.
And so let's fast forward, because you mentioned injuries, man, and I want to talk about one. You had a leg injury with the Vikings, right? And so a lot of times, like you said, people, because this could be the end. Like, is this the end? Is this like, is it detrimental to my life? Like, can I come back and play football? Like, walk us through that mindset, man, of like, it could be really, really bad. It could be season ending. It could be, life ending, or it could be nothing, but I got to go through all this and figure out if I still want to play football.
Yeah. I think life in general is about how you respond to hardship, right? And so in that moment, right, people don't know I had compartment syndrome, acute, basically injury to my shin. It swells, the swelling can't go anywhere, so it just builds up in your leg. it can build up so much where people can lose their legs and do all these, it's crazy. Don't look it up on the internet because the pictures are gruesome, right? So it was wild. But when you're in that moment, and you're going through it, you don't really have, you have one or two choices. Again, you could choose to respond in the right way and fight through it and be one of those guys that, it's part of your story, or you can choose to let it define you and kind of sulk in the moment. And so the only way I know is to fight through it. And that's what I did. I had a goal of coming back after a week, which was 5 weeks later. And that's what I did. They sewed it up. Muscle was back intact. I was fine. And I played that next game versus Detroit. And so when you go through it, there's a lot of stories that people and fans don't know about NFL players and what we have to go through during a week-to-week process just to get to Sunday, right? Not even to get over an injury, but just to get to Sunday. And that's one of many stories that I got. Obviously, one that was defining in the sense of how serious it could have been. But there's so many stories that every guy has that is playing this game.
And a lot of people don't know this. So I was kind of similar my second year, I think, or third year, I can't remember, but I had a PCL. So my PCL, my meniscus kind of, a little issue. And so as I was like 24 at the time. I had two veteran receivers that at the time I felt like they were in their 40s, but I think they were like 36, 37. Marcus Robinson, who was a Bear, and then Frank, I forgot Frank's last name, but Frank played for the Cardinals actually, and he came to the Ravens. And so being one of the younger guys, they're like, hey, can you get to the bye week so we can, we don't have to bring in somebody else. So I went like 9 weeks on a torn meniscus, played through it. And I look back on it, I kind of wish, I'm like, do I wish I had done it and gotten surgery sooner? Because I see JJ McCarthy do it, get the surgery right away, no long-term issues, whereas I had to deal with lingering, different things. And so when I hear about Carson Wentz in the shoulder and the labrum and, just gritting it out, not his throwing shoulder, so, hey, you can't hurt it any worse. Explain that to man, because people don't understand that. Like, explain that, because your conversation, you with your leg, I'm pretty sure Carson was having the same conversations with the trainers and then the head coach and then your agent, because your agent and your representation has to kind of give you a heads up too. Like, hey, this is how you got to weigh the options. What does that look like for a player like Carson Wentz, who clearly is in pain, clearly could be out that week, but the coach and the team is like, hey, if you can go, we'll take you because we want to keep our young quarterback like 100% so he can get to 100% before he has to play again.
Yeah, there's a balance, right? There's definitely a balance. I know you put yourself in Carson's shoes, right? And he's trying to prove so much out there this year. This is such a big year and defining moment in his career, and he's got an opportunity, with KO and an offense and defense and the history of the past few years of this team being together, right? Like when you're having those discussions, it's like, I'm not missing this opportunity. I got to make of the opportunity I have right now because I don't know when JJ is going to come back and how everything's going to play out. Like if I got the opportunity to be on the field with this team, I'm going to do it, right? And as painful and as tough as that's got to be, right? Like that's the mind pushing you past your limit, right? And that's what you respect. I respect it so much because you see every single drive he comes off, right? And he's in pain. He's trying to push through, and it's got to affect your play at some point. It affects your mind at some point. Probably takes your focus off of being in the moment of the game. But hey, man, like football is not an easy sport, and everybody's hurt at some point. And the grown ones are the ones who can get out there and do it at a high level while they're still in pain.
And the Eagles, they're good. We know Jalen Hurts. The Cardinals, I think they found their quarterback, Kyler Murray, but there's always question marks there with him and his height and playing video games and all that. But the Minnesota Vikings and the Cleveland Browns are kind of in the similar quarterback conundrum. When you look at Cleveland, same thing. Like they have two rookie quarterbacks as well. So the Vikings have JJ McCarthy and Max Brosmer. JJ's not a rookie, but pretty much a rookie. And then you got Shedeur Sanders and you got Dylan Gabriel. And when you see the same thing with the Browns, like, I mean, honestly, as a player, because again, you're closer to the game than I am. Like, you were more recent. I think because how old were you in 2007?
07. Shoot.
Were you born?
Yeah, come on, man. I was born in 92, so what would that make me? 15?
Okay, yeah. So so when I was playing, you were old enough to walk around almost driving.
Yeah.
So I don't feel that old. Like when I interview college players now and some of these freshmen, it's so funny because I'll be like, yeah, man, and I went to Ohio State and we beat Ohio State when they were number 2 in the country, and then I'll say the year and they're like, whoa, what? 2000? For them, 2000 is like black and white TV, and I'm like, bruh, 2000 was not that long ago. So, it kind of was.
But in the locker room with these dudes, man. When you're in the locker room with these guys, I'm like, I was born in 92. They're like, oh, I was born in 02. You're like, what? Like, what? It's crazy. It's crazy.
Did they bring a walker for you and like some Depends diapers and any of that stuff, or?
They were calling me they were calling me OG. I got all the old nicknames.
Because that's what's so funny about, I think about guys like Joe Flacco, in his 40s. I'm like, he looks tired after every single drive. Like, he just looks like he's ready to go home, sit on the couch, put on a nice cardigan sweater, have some hot chocolate by the fire. Like, he's doing it because he loves it, and it's a lot of money. But you could tell, like, after some of those games, he's like, all right, man, I got to, where's my car? I got to get out of here. You guys are trying to go to the bar. Because, post-game, guys are trying to make plans. Like, hey, man, we're going to go out to do this. Joe Flacco's like, man, I'm going home. Like, I'm out of here. I am not, exactly. I'm not going to no bar with y'all to have some drinks till 1 a.m. But looking at the Browns, man, like, as a former player, most recently former player, like, honestly, do you think that this Deion Sanders thing is holding Shedeur back, or do you really think that the Browns just have no clue what they want to do with this team?
Man, it's I really think it's the second one. I think the issue, you look at the situation with like Joe Flacco, right?
Yeah.
And Joe was in that system 2 years ago, right? They made it to the playoffs. They come back. He comes back 2 years later and can't even get close to putting up the type of production he was putting up before. And the defense is playing at such a high level that you're like, if the offense could just do a little bit more, mm-hmm. they'd be in contention of every single game that they're in. I think the issues are way deeper than just who's the quarterback. Mm. I think it's more than that. At this point, I know everybody's calling to see Shedeur, but I'm almost like, man, let's hold off on seeing Shedeur until the problem's fixed, right? Like until they figure out what's going on, and now he can have an actual fair shot to be evaluated. So, that team, they're still finding their identity offensively, very similar to kind of how I explained it with Texas. Just it's a situation that is not good right now, that you just hope each week you continuously get better, and find a way to just, all right, maybe this week we have, two explosives, right? Because they're not able to generate any explosives. Like, can we get a couple explosives this week to put our offense in a position to score one more time, maybe two more times, right? That's the difference. And a lot of that is just scheming it up, figuring out the identity, figuring out what we're good at, what we're bad at. They're coming into a bye, so hopefully they got some time to figure it out.
Well, yeah. So, the Cleveland Browns, they got to figure it out, but the Minnesota Vikings, like, same thing, quarterback situation, J.J. McCarthy coming back in. You as a linebacker, so you look at Blake Cashman, you look at Eric Wilson. These guys are having to probably carry a lot of water right now as a defense when you think about the offensive production, because the Vikings, just for some numbers, man, the Vikings offense is 26th in the NFL right now for yards gained. They are 26th in run game, which means, 93 yards a game. You know what that means. Clock's not running because they're throwing the ball way too much and they're not productive. So that means the defense is out there. Point score per game. They are 18th. Now, defensively, Brian Flores is doing what he could do. In the past game, he's 8th. So he's still doing what he does, getting after the quarterback, exotic blitzes and all this stuff. I've talked to a bunch of guys about that. We've had Harrison Smith We had Theo Jackson, talked about the safety look. We had Josh Metellus talking about how you guys rock and roll the safeties and do all that stuff. But when you look at this team, right, there's something injury. I mean, they had 17 guys hurt, 17 on either IR or out, like not injured, out. Like, that's crazy when you have 17 guys either on IR or out by ESPN's little, O's and X's, and they tell us right before the game. And I started going down the roster, and I'm like, this is a lot of guys on IR or out. And so when you think about that, can you blame any of this on so when the offense is not going well, we know it's KOC, but can you really blame that on the coaches? Like, as a player, when you're sitting there, you guys are looking at the offense and you're looking at the number of injuries, like the offensive line had 3 out of 5 starters hurt in a game. When you think about that, like, how much of that is just, man, it's just bad luck, or, hey, the coaches maybe should have prepared for this, or maybe we should run the ball more? Like, where do you put that on? Because the fans when they call in post game, they're all like, oh, we got to get rid of KOC, or it's Kwesi's fault for his draft picks. And it's like, these guys are pros getting paid to do it. Oftentimes, you can't just blame the coaches. There might be something fundamentally off with receivers not getting separation, quarterbacks, not seeing the open guy. Because I do a lot of film study for the Vikings on Vikings.com, and every week I kind of look at other teams' red zone. I'm doing the Lions' red zone defense this week. And the one thing I've learned is they run a lot of man coverage, and they get beat a lot by crossing routes because the guys get super confused, and the linebackers, I mean, there's a ton of Anzalone pointing at the guy like, that's your guy, why are you over here? Like, the Chiefs absolutely murdered them they loaded 4 receivers to one side and then just ran crossing routes. And every single time the Lions, like, I'm like, at what point are you going to play just 2 and sit back and say, okay, they're crisscrossing us every time. And the Lions are just going to, I mean, you know how it is, man, just like Flores. Some coaches want to live and die by their scheme. And the Lions have died, but only twice. But they've died by that scheme because the Ravens killed them with it. The Chiefs killed them with it. And then to start the season, the Packers killed them with it with just crossing routes, crossing guys up, putting the safeties in bad positions. But how much of that can you put on the coach versus the players?
I think, first off, the people calling for KLC are crazy. That's a wild take. To me, this happens every year. Some of these teams, it happens every year. Look at San Fran. How many times do they start the season, their guys get injured, boom, 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 and then, week 16, 15, 16, they are hitting their stride.
Yep.
Right. That's what you got to realize about the NFL. Is first half of the season is done. There's so much more to be played. You hope you can weather the storm and find a way to put yourself in contention by the end of the season. Like, that's the NFL. And you hope, right? You hope that you're able to knock all that out early. First off, you don't want injury, period. But if you're going to have injury, you'd rather have it now than have it going into the playoffs, going into week 15, 16, 17, December football. So to me, I think it's just a matter of understanding and having perspective of, like, look, it's been unlucky. We gotta do the best we can with what we have. We gotta, it might take, adjusting the scheme a little bit here and there, running the ball a little bit more, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you got to try to just weather that storm, push through, and get to a point when you're hitting your stride when it matters the most in November and December.
Yeah. Well, I'm here, Ron Johnson, with Jordan Hicks, former Vikings and NFL linebacker. I want to get more into the family life now before we get out of here, man, because I got a chance to talk to your wife a little bit too. She is awesome, by the way. But when did you guys meet in college? Did you guys meet in the pro? Like, when did you meet her?
Yeah, we met in college, and I think it's 2013, something like that. I graduated 2015. She knows the date. I'm fuzzy on it, but I think it was 2013 college.
So was she like an athlete or what? How'd you meet her?
Nah. We met through a mutual friend, a girl that I had known for a long time, a friend of ours that was connected to the football team. She had a class with her, saw her on campus, got her number. The rest was history.
So like most football players would say, you outkicked your coverage.
Yep.
So when you when you think about that though, like, finding somebody early on like that, being able to go, because you've been in locker rooms, man. You hear all the horror stories. You see all the horror stories. Like I was the same. I met my wife my freshman year, and we were friends all the way through college. Ended up dating our senior year, and here we are. 20 whatever years later. 20. Oh man, yeah, whatever that is.
I'm with you.
My math is off, like 24, 25, 24, like, so yeah, so 26, 1998. Yeah. I mean, the math. but when you think about that, man, like having somebody there, because like the day-to-day, the coming home and being able to kind of unload and talk to somebody, not going about life on your own, because, we see a lot of former players now, ended up in bad situations, whether they're in hotels by themselves and they ended up, ending their life by mistake, whether they're out late driving at 4 a.m., whether they're drunk, at 2 p.m., it's just like, every time I read those stories, I'm like, he's doing it by himself. You can tell, because there's no family around him. There's no friends around him anymore. How is that for you now, being retired, having your wife and kids there, and really being content in the moment? Because I think that's the thing with the word I'll use is content. A lot of players, after they're done, can't find that level of content, that level of like, okay, this is happiness. This is what life is like.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's been a transition, right? There's definitely, obviously, going through it alone, I can't imagine, because, like you said, that level of loneliness post football would be insane. Having a support system, right? I've got 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. They were a part of the journey as well, in the NFL, moving here, doing this, and having to meet new people and experience all these cool things. So they got to be a part of it. And now it's different for everybody, right? Like we're all adjusting at the same time. And my wife's my support system. She's my rock, right? Like I have, every time I come home, it didn't matter if we won or lost, right? There was always that consistency at home. And, even now there's, she pushes me to be better. Always has, right? That to me, like that has been one of the biggest things that I can attribute, to her, is that I don't know if I would have played 10 years in the NFL without being pushed at home as well. It pushed me to take ownership and become a different type of man, right? Even now, in this transition, like the push of like, all right, what's next? How are we going to navigate this? And it hasn't necessarily been easy, but at the same time, I'm not doing it alone. We're doing it together. We're doing it as a family. So it's been rewarding.
And and you did bring up, like you said, it wasn't easy right away. July 25th, 2005, you decided to retire from the NFL. July 26th to 31st, I'm guessing there was a lot of probably mental questions. August rolls around, September, training camp, seeing preseason games, man. Like what was that emotion like, kind of realizing like, yeah, I'm done. Like I am done.
Yeah. I'm blessed enough to be able to have made that decision on my own, right? And I knew something was off. I knew there was a feeling that I needed to be, in order for me to become the person and the man that I wanted to become. The game, I would have to leave the game at some point. And that time came a little sooner than I expected, than anybody expected. And there was a lot of emotion that came with it, man. I was, trying to navigate it, trying to figure it all out. The game had been such a huge part of my life, and kind of like a parent, kind of like a friend, kind of like this thing that just was always consistent in your life and was always feeding you in different aspects in different ways. That if anything was going on in your regular life, that you could run to escape, right? And so knowing that was gone, it was kind of like a breakup in a way. Like it was real deep in a sense. And so finding that peace and finding that ability to just take a step back and enjoy, the fruits of the labor, I think is part of it. But at the same time, us high level trying to always figure out what's next, right? You're always in this tension between resting in it and enjoying it and navigating the next. And so, it's like I said, I'm still in the transition. It hasn't. It's not all easy. It's not all easy, but at the same time, it's rewarding, man. It's cool to go back to a Vikings game like that and feel like, man, there was a sense like I still felt like I was on the team, and that seeing the respect, seeing all the work you put in pay off in that sense, to me is what I play for.
And the one thing I will say, man, the Vikings alumni weekends are some of the best in the NFL. I'll say that. Like, I've been around a couple different teams, and I think the Bears do a good job as well. But it's something about the Vikings. I don't know if it's the fans, it's the city, it's the former players, but they do a really good job, man. So make sure you stay connected with Tracy McDonald. She does that, and you know that. And so, staying connected with that, because the one thing I will say, the further you get away from it, the further your mind can kind of question everything that happened. Like, did this happen? Am I that guy? How come nobody still talks to me or recognizes me? It's all in your head. Like, I'm 45 now, and I don't need to be around people. Like, I enjoy my daughter's softball and my wife and hanging out and doing kid stuff. And do I enjoy going to the games every Sunday? Heck yes. Like, that's the one blessing I've had in the last 11 years of doing this job is I get to go to football every weekend. Gophers on Saturdays, Vikings on Sundays. I've been doing that for 11 years now, and it kept me engaged as well within the sport, because I wasn't able. Like, my dad won 2 Super Bowls with the Steelers back in 78, 79. And so I heard all those stories, and then for me to get hurt, not reach what I thought I should reach, being a 6'3", 230-pound receiver, I'm like, this is easy. And then injury happens, and it's like, it's not that hard. It's not that easy anymore. I got to work hard. I got to do that. And I know I was the problem. Like, I was the problem. Like, I had a chip on my shoulder. I felt like, like I shouldn't have gotten hurt, or I shouldn't have been doing special teams practices at that moment or whatever, blah, blah. And so there's a lot of stuff I probably wore on my sleeve that I shouldn't have. I got to the Bears, and the one thing I heard, Lovie Smith got to the Bears, made the roster, and Lovie brought me to his office. He said, man, is that all behind you now? And I had no idea. Like, I thought my feelings were like, I kept them to myself, but I guess like the special teams coach could feel it. People could feel it within the Ravens organization that I probably was like resentful of certain things. I didn't even notice I was doing that.
Wow.
But somebody had mentioned that to Lovie, like, the only thing holding him back is probably himself, and Lovie's like, is that behind you? And then I told him, I was like, look, man, I wasn't mad. I said, I was more mad that when I was hurt, they weren't allowing me to rehab. And that was all I said. I said, when I was hurt, I should have been able to rehab and not be forced to, go on the road and not be forced to sit in meetings. Cause I missed one game, the Bengals game, to stay back. So my knee wouldn't swell up. And they took it as if like I didn't want to be around the team. And I'm like, no, I don't want any setbacks. Like, I want to get back on the field as fast as possible. And it just snowballed, and I had no clue. I had no idea until Lovie said that to me. And now I tell my daughter that. I'm like, you can't have a resting B face. One, you're a black girl. You're a black girl on a team full of white girls on a softball field. And if a college coach looks over, like, yeah, you're one of the top hitters at the tournament. You're the fastest girl on the field. But what does your face look like when you're mad about something? Do they take that as like, you could just be, that's just your look. But, it's okay to smile and have fun even when things aren't going great. And so I've had to remind her of that her body language is what coaches are watching too. They know she can hit the ball. They know you're fast. They know you can play center field. But what's your body language? Like, how are you around your teammates? What's your body language like? So, I've learned from my mistakes and being able to pass them on to her. But when you look at your life, man, like now, your true strength, ability, and awareness, right? Because I wanted to make sure you talked about that. So life after football, now you get more time to dedicate to your foundation. But explain, because a lot of people have foundations, but your website, man, it's robust. There's a lot of stuff going on. You guys are really, your mission, is really like front and, clear, awareness to make a difference in lives of young people with disabilities. So where did that come from? Like, where did that, like, I want to do this. Where'd you get that from, or what triggered it?
Yeah. So I had the opportunity in high school to be a part of a friend of mine, Greg Ozinski's life. Greg was diagnosed at a young age with muscular dystrophy. And so he had a regular life. He was a regular young kid. And then his body, he developed muscular dystrophy and his body began to deteriorate. So by the time I had the opportunity to be with him, he was, stuck in a wheelchair, fully cognitive, but his body was just giving up on him. And his aide, who was a really good friend of mine, reached out and was like, hey, would you mind coming and spending your study hall with Greg? And me being the number one linebacker in the country, all of this stuff, I'm like, yeah, man, like I'll get back to the kids and this and that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Of course, I'll be a part of his life. Like I'll make a difference in his life. Well, it didn't take long, right? You think about those first few times of being in the room with somebody you don't know who's stuck in a wheelchair, at the age of, I'm 15 at the time. And there's this barrier, there's this wall, there's this uncomfortableness in the air. And I don't know how to talk to this kid. I don't know what to say, this and that. And, so there's that. And once that was broken through, you start realizing like, man, this dude is literally coming to school every day, going home every day, can't do anything by himself. He has to look death in the face. He knows he has an end date, that's happening soon. Mm-hmm. And the entire time I see this guy, he's got a smile on his face. And the way he attacks his life, the way he attacks, what he's going through, is really what started this entire thing. And to me, right, seeing his ability to handle this situation is what I call true strength, right? There are so many more people out there that are going through things that we don't have a clue about, that we don't understand the day-to-day. We don't understand there's real life and death situations out there, and I got to play a game of football, And to me, I'm like, I'm this strong NFL player and I'm this strong football player, but no, that's not true strength. True strength are the people who are dealing with this every single day and are showing up every single day ready to fight. And that was it. That's the heart behind it. That's the mentality behind it. So what we do is we partner with schools, and we come in and the goal is to raise funds to support these special ed, special education system that often gets overlooked, that they don't have the budget, right? You mm-hmm. talk about budget cuts. The first thing that usually goes in a high school or in a school system is the special ed department. And so our aim is to help fund, these departments and help get back to the communities. And then, twofold, not just that, celebrate the abilities of these kids, but mm-hmm. what we want to do is we want to build leaders, right? We want to build leaders and bridge the gap to where that uncomfortable conversation isn't as uncomfortable anymore. And now we're connecting the two, and it creates a level of locker room type of camaraderie where, you're walking through the school system, you're walking through the school halls, and you see the kid in a wheelchair, and you're not afraid to go up to him, but you make his day by going up to him and saying hey and getting to know him a little bit. So that's our goal, that's our aim, and it's been amazing. We've been up and running for about a year and a half, and we've done quite a bit of it's really only been a year and a half, and we've done quite a bit in the local Cincinnati area where I'm from, but we're trying to get down to Austin and get nationwide. So yeah.
That's crazy, man, because when I look at it, it looks like this was your whole NFL career. You've been focused on this, and so it's just cool to see, because I grew up in a household. My mom was a special education teacher. She ended up getting her doctorate, and she went to a college as well and was a dean of students there. But then she went back into high school education, was a principal for a while, assistant principal. And as she got older, she just wanted to, and she still maintains a special education classroom where she monitors, because she just has a heart and a way with those kids. It's actually kind of, I can't say it on camera, but I have to tell you some of the stories she tells my wife. Her and my wife are really, they talk probably more. I mean, honestly, my wife talks more to my mom than I talk to my mom. And so she tells, because my wife's a dean as well at a high school here in Minnesota, at Southwest Christian High School. So her and my mom are kind of similar, both are deans, both in higher education, both have their masters, blah, blah, and all that stuff. And so I just hear the stories, and I can always hear my wife saying like, no, you didn't. Like, cause my mom is Detroit. Like, I'm from Detroit, man. So inner city kid, grew up, I can flip the conversation when I'm home and how I talk to my boys. But then I know how when I'm in front of the camera, I need to keep it, I need to keep it corporate and do it the right way. But I grew up in, inner city Detroit, literally east side Detroit, best friend went to jail for selling drugs, or one of my teammates went to jail for selling drugs, XYZ, all that stuff. But was blessed enough to have men in my life. My dad, one of them, but his friends as well, that kind of kept us in AAU basketball, kept us in baseball, kept us in football to keep us away from that. And I will say in Detroit, when I grew up in the 80s, I hate to say it, but it's true. Our drug dealers, our gang members, our dudes that was doing bad made sure to protect the football player. Like they were like, nah, man, we ain't gonna bother that. Like we ain't, like you don't bother us, we won't bother you. And so it was always that respect level of like, hey, we gonna do our thing, y'all do your thing. Just don't mess with our guys when y'all in school, and we won't, and it was kind of one of those things. Like we won't bother y'all don't bother us. We can coexist. But it's just interesting growing up when I look back, because like BMF, I don't know if you ever watched that show, but I grew up in that Black Mafia family era, like Meech and T, like those are like one of those dudes, his brother on our team was with, like he went to jail with them. Goodness. Like so I was around it, but I was lucky and blessed enough to have men to keep me out of it. You know what I mean? To be like, nah, man, y'all don't want to go over there. Nah, man, don't do this. So I had really good groups of men, and that's what I do now. Whenever I go speak at schools or I get a chance to talk to football players, that's the one thing I tell them, man, is don't let your environment push you. And so that's why I love your work, because my mom always says that about some of her students, is like, don't let your environment tell you what you should do, and don't let this hold you back, because a lot of people they'll, nah, you need to go sit over there. No, you need to go do this. And so I love the capital improvements, the life skills and transition, because people forget about it. Like when they're adults, they still got to live their life.
Exactly.
They're not going to have a classroom to take care of them. So it's really cool that you're doing that. And last one before I get out of here, man, I want to ask you this. So when you think about those moments, because now you've been doing it for a year, right?
Right.
You're also retired. So that's a lot of emotions. You've retired, and now you're pouring into people, man, that sometimes you get home, you just want to cry, because you're like, I can't believe this person's going through that, man. Like, I can't believe this kid has to deal with this. I can't believe this kid's in a wheelchair. Like, this family is doing everything they can, and there's nothing they can do to stop this timeline. A friend of mine just got, he's towards the end now, and it's been tough, but my best friend grew up with him since we were 4 years old, got diagnosed with ALS. So I've kind of seen that, deterioration, that transition, what that looks like, when your body just quits, your mind's still going, but your body quits on you. But how do you do that? And I know your wife's probably part of it, man, but like in those moments when you just want to cry, when you just feel down and you're like, man, not only am I done with football, but now like I just heard the like craziest story ever about a kid. And then you got to kind of like go back to normal life. How do you emotionally like deal with that?
Well, I think first and foremost, you're thankful for health, right? And the health of your family and the health of those around you, your children. It says, everybody's, there was a quote that I saw. It was like, everybody's got a ton of problems, and then when you get sick, you only got one.
Yeah.
And it's like the moment your health goes, you start realizing life's too short.
Yeah.
And so being in these moments and seeing these kids and seeing the struggle that they go through, it's hard. It's hard. But a lot of them, what you realize, Ron, is a lot of them have more joy than we do.
Yeah.
And we're at there's this one girl that goes to my old high school that every event I've gone to, she's at, and she comes up, she's got the biggest smile on her face. She's happy. She's hanging around. She's hugging me. It's like you're thankful that you're also in a position to be able to give back as well, right? And so it's such a, I hold strong to my faith. I pray about health. I'm thankful for my health. I'm thankful for the family's health, but I'm also thankful that I can help.
Mhm.
And I think that's the responsibility that you feel, right? When you go back and you talk, that's the responsibility that I feel when I go back to these schools and I see, these communities and these kids that need it and, aren't necessarily asking for it. And that's even more of a reward. So it's special. It's special to be a part of.
Yeah, man. And that's what I see. Cause you said that like everything is great until that one thing happens. And, we've been through, my wife is an Olympian. I mean, she went to the Olympics in 2008, was a triple jumper, number one jumper in the US back then, coming out of the University of Minnesota. And so just her going through that, one of the strongest people I know, one of the strongest Christ-driven women I know. And then at the age of 37 gets diagnosed with breast cancer. And it became that one thing for us. And then I didn't even have time to really mourn. My dad passed away 2 months before her diagnosis. And so, or not even, we got home from the funeral and she got the call from her doctor that she has breast cancer. And my dad died unexpectedly. He had CTE. And, we went to Detroit actually to shoot a episode with the NFL. We were going there because I was like, he needs to tell his story. He played with Mel Blount, Steel Curtin, Franco Harris, Terry Bradshaw, one of the best defenses ever in football history, Jack Lambert, Jack Ham. And so I'm going home just to help him shoot this, to talk about it. Because Mike Webster had just killed himself, who was one of the center for the Steelers. And he was going through concussion stuff. And the movie Concussion with Will Smith was about some of those Steelers players. Because you thought you had it hard, man. They went through 3 and 4 a days back in the 70s.
Goodness.
3 and 4 days. And if they did a 3 a day, 2 out of the 3 were padded.
That's crazy. It would not. There's no way this younger generation would be able to handle that.
It would be a strike. Players would be marching. They would be marching in front of their stadiums morning. So they would do 6:30 a.m. wake up, workout, practice at 7:30, full pads, walk through, kind of run through at noon. And then they would come back at 4 p.m. for another padded practice. And they had to actually, and they did 6 preseason games. It was 6 weeks of training camp. It was 6 weeks of training camp with 4 preseason games. So 6 weeks of training camp. And that's 6 weeks of 3, 4. So, so when I started hearing, and I actually have his helmet back here on my shelf. And so, man, if I ever get a chance, if I know you're coming to town, I'll bring it up to the Viking Stadium one time. But man, if you see the 70s helmets, you'll be like, man, how did y'all, this thing is heavy. It's heavy as all get out. The padding doesn't expand well. It's horrible. So, but for him to pass away that way, I knew he was in a better place. He had been struggling mentally. He was questioning everything. He had tore his ACL in 80 something, 86, 85. And I think at the time he thought he got shot. He said it felt like he got shot. And he literally thought the mafia set him up because his dad had a gambling debt. It was just stuff like that where I'm like, yeah, man, your brain is failing you. And as I started to point that out to him, he was like, yeah, let's tell my story. And we had his brain donated, when he passed away. And that's how we got the diagnosis. There's no other way to diagnose it besides donating their brain. Right. And the NFL for years, though, just tried to brush, no, he's fine. Because he was fine. 95% of the time, he was fine. It was that 5% where it's man. And then my wife, So I know exactly what you're talking about. Everything is great until that moment where you get that diagnosis and you're like, all right, I got to focus on getting healthy.
Right.
And so these kids, though, like you said, these kids, they know their diagnosis. So it's not the one thing. Their thing is, I want to live my life to the fullest. I want to go on the next day. So I truly, when I started looking at this, man, and this is how I live my life, man. I don't just reach out, because I've never reached out to you in my life. Yeah. I don't reach out to people for no reason, right? I saw you at the stadium. You were standing there. I had just seen your wife post something about my husband's retired, and this is what a game day looks like for us now. So I know that happened. And so when I saw you, I said, man, God telling me, let me just say something to him, see what happens, right? And so that's how I do it, man. I don't like Harrison Smith, short story. I don't know if you were here at the time, no, because George Floyd got killed. Harrison Smith, my daughter made bracelets. She was selling bracelets to give money back to the Minneapolis community who had their stuff looted and burned down. She ended up raising $132,000 with friendship bracelets. Michael Strahan came out with Good Morning America and all that stuff, and Little Caesars came out and donated. Harrison Smith drove over to our house. And honestly, I had to text the Vikings to make sure it wasn't fake, because I got a message on Instagram from Harrison Smith, and I'm like, this is not, why is he dude, just get somebody, like, you can get my number. Like, CJ Ham got my number. Thielen's got my number. I'm like, why are you? So I text somebody else. I'm like, hey, is this Harrison Smith's number? And he was like, yeah. And then, like, Mark Wilf, he texted us, the owner of the Vikings, so I text the Vikings again, like, hey, is this really Mark Wilf? Because they were asking me questions like, hey, what's your address? And I'm like, no, I'm not giving you my address. Like, who is this? And so, but Harrison was like, man, don't tell them I'm coming. Don't tell your kids. Like, I'm just going to show up. And so literally pulls up. And it's a Tesla in our neighborhood. So people kind of was like, wait a minute, why is there a Tesla over here? Like, at the time, nobody in our neighborhood had Teslas. So, he pulls up. And I don't tell the kids who he is. He walks over. They're all just staring at him, trying to figure out, who this is. And then my daughter randomly had his jersey because a friend had given it to her. So I went and got his jersey. I said, this is who this is. All the kids' faces were, at the time, they were like 7 and 8, so they really didn't really know football. But their faces lit up. Of course, all the neighbors start coming out. People start, because the news, Fox 9, it showed up. And so then people saw it on the news. So then people are showing up. And he hung out for like 2 hours, you know what I mean? And like little stuff like that, I realized, man, like, it just happened. I don't force it to happen. And so, like, with you, man, like, I'm going to stay, keep an eye on your stuff that you're doing, man. And, if we ever have a chance to run to each other again, or you got something going on in Minnesota, an event or something, never hesitate to ask me, man. Cause I know the people, like, I know the CEO of Delta Dental. I know the, CEO of Post Brands and all, so all that stuff. Like, if you're like, hey, I want to set this up for a Minneapolis school, what CEOs do you know? I can get you connected with those guys, man. Because one, here's a crazy thing. All those CEOs are black, man. Like, a lot of people don't know that about those companies. Delta Dental CEO is black, and it's not just that. They're also former athletes, right? So in the CEO of Stryker, the CFO of Medtronic, these are all former athletes that don't put their names out in the media like that. But these are guys I play basketball with or I work out with, and I know them. And so, yeah, man, like, I don't have a foundation, so I don't really use them for that. But I am meeting with Delta Dental about this concussion stuff we're about to do with this new mouthpiece. So yeah, anytime, man. But I want to appreciate you for joining me on the Ron Johnson Show, man. It was great talking to you. Good luck in retirement. And seriously, man, stay connected to the teams, man, because that's the one benefit that you have that a lot of guys don't, is you can go to an Eagles game, you can go to a Cardinals game, you can go to a Browns game. I don't know if you want to do that, but you can go to a Browns game. And you can definitely come back to the Vikings games, man. So you're and Texas, man. Texas football is legit, man. Like, so legit. It's legit. Like, so you are a blessed individual, man, to be able to do that and show up to those places so people are gonna love on you, and you'll be surprised, man. Like, you're gonna have a great retirement. If you ever want to see a funny video, watch Kobe Bryant. I don't know if you remember this, Kobe Bryant and Jerry Rice, the Kobe system. Kobe was giving Jerry. Yeah, you were young. You were young, man. So you probably didn't know this, but yeah, Kobe Bryant's shoe commercial was with like Kanye West, Serena Williams. It's one of my favorite commercials. But just Google it. It's Kobe Bryant, Jerry Rice, the Kobe system or something like that. And he was telling Jerry, it's a joke, but he was telling Jerry Rice how to dominate retirement. So it's one of my favorite commercials with Kobe Bryant. But again, man, I'm Ron Johnson. That's Jordan Hicks. I want to thank you for joining me on the Hey Ron Johnson segment.